One of the wonderful things about being an SLP is there's so much variety in the field in terms of the setting you work in, the populations you work with, and the treatment areas you specialize in. One of these settings is a private practice, which many SLPs are drawn to because of the flexibility it offers. When you start your own private practice, you're able to choose your service platform, the population you serve, the hours you work, and much more. Today, Debbie and I are going to spend some time looking at what goes into starting your own private practice. There are a few steps to take before you're able to open your own private practice, and that includes making decisions about what your business will look like so you can write up a business plan that will help you chart the way to successful private practice. We will start by going over the elements included in your business plan and then break those elements down and look at them in greater detail. A business plan is something that acts as a plan for you to follow as you set up your private practice, and it's what you're given to the bank or other individuals who may be involved in the development of your business. Your business plan may not have all of these elements. It's going to be up to you to decide what's appropriate for your business. The first thing in your business plan will be a cover letter. This is the first thing the bank or other investors will see when they're considering whether they want to invest in your business, so you want to make a good first impression. The cover letter will be short, about 1 to 2 pages, and will be addressed to a specific person, if possible. The purpose of the cover letter is to outline why your practice is a good investment. This will be a similar format to a cover letter you would submit for a job application, only your content will be slightly different, focusing more on the reasons for opening your business and details about your financial plan, including how much money you have to invest in your business and how much you plan to profit in the first year or two. The table of contents is pretty self-explanatory, so let's skip to the executive summary. This is typically written last, as it summarizes each component in 1 to 2 sentences, basically highlighting the main points. The business description outlines the mission of your practice and includes a vision statement, the goals and objectives of your practice, the history of your practice, and the legal structure of your practice. The mission statement is a brief paragraph, free of jargon, that's going to address the purpose of your business. At the least, it should answer these 3 questions. Answering the first question addresses the purpose of the business. The second question addresses the business of the organization, and the third question speaks to the values of the organization. There will be a link provided on how to write a mission statement if you'd like more support or information. The vision statement describes your practice's plan for or views of the future. It's brief, inspirational, and it's not a one-time goal. It's going to offer a long-term perspective for the organization that's unlikely to be changed by market or technological fluctuations. As you write your vision statement, make sure you're speaking to the goals which are fundamental to your ambition and foresight for the future. Once you've written your vision statement, commit to it. All of your goals and strategies will ultimately be focused on making it a reality. I'm also going to include a link with tips on writing a good vision statement. What are the goals for your practice and how do you plan on achieving them? Similar to writing goals for anything, it's best if your goals are SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. For history, you're focusing on the experience and expertise of the key managers and partners in your practice. Do they have the skills you need represented? If you're trying to open a private practice that treats feeding and swallowing in infants, someone on your team should probably have some experience or education in this area. Investors want to see that you have the skills you need to succeed. This might include a business-savvy individual, an SLP who has the skills or knowledge to treat your designated population, maybe someone who knows about marketing. In the case of feeding and swallowing, it might also be helpful to have someone with a background in nutrition. As far as the legal structure of your practice, this is going to look at the type of business entity you will be, the paperwork you're filing, and other aspects of the legal structure of your business. Let's spend some time now looking at the legal structure for your private practice. The first step is to get an attorney. An attorney will be the best suited for helping you check all the necessary boxes and make decisions for your specific private practice. As you prepare for your first meeting with your attorney, you can start assessing the risk for your private practice. There will be different levels of risk depending on the clients you serve, the diagnoses you treat, and many other factors. For example, if you're opening a private practice for accent modification for neurotypical adults, Your risk will be very different than a private practice that treats infants with feeding and swallowing disorders. With the different levels of risk, there are different levels of protection. So the different business entities offer different levels of protection. A sole proprietorship is a business run by one individual for their own benefit. It's the simplest form of business organization. Proprietorships have no existence apart from the owners and terminate with the proprietor's death. The proprietor undertakes the risks of the business as they are not a separate legal entity from the business. That being said, financially, the business and the proprietor should be separate. Separating business finances from personal finances helps create a level of protection in the event that the business is sued. Sole proprietorship is the most common form of business organization in the U.S. because it's the easiest and least expensive to establish. It's also easy to discontinue, and the owner is in charge of all decisions, profits, and responsibility for losses and debts. Some disadvantages include the limited life of the business, the fact that it dies when the proprietor does, and the proprietor is personally liable to the full extent of their assets for the liabilities of the business. So this would be a low level of protection, but cheaper and easier to start. A general partnership is an agreement, expressed or implied, between two or more persons who join together for a business venture for profit. Each partner would contribute money, property, labor, and/or skill, and each partner would share in the profits and losses. A limited partnership limits the personal liability of individual partners for the debts of the business according to the amount they have invested. Essentially, you split the risk between two individuals. In a limited partnership, the risk is limited based on how much each partner invested, while the general partnership does not have that limitation. A partnership also means decisions are made by both people, so they might take longer. A limited liability company, or LLC, is a hybrid between a partnership and a corporation. This is similar to a limited partnership in that you have operational flexibility and income benefits, as well as the limited liability exposure. However, there are significant legal and statutory differences. An LLC allows the greatest flexibility for customizing the structure of the business, and it limits the member liability. One of the disadvantages includes the comprehensive operating agreement that's required because of the high degree of variability or flexibility. A corporation is a legal entity operating under state law whose scope of activity and name are restricted by its charter. An S corporation is a special closed corporation, basically limiting the number of members, that's going to provide small corporations with a tax advantage. Corporations and S corporations both provide a high level of protection in that personal assets cannot be seized by creditors to satisfy debts. It's easier to expand the company and transfer ownership with a corporation or S corporation. This does come with some disadvantages, including more government regulation, higher costs, and limitation to the state where it was issued, while other business entities can move as long as the SLP has the appropriate state licensures. I will include some resources for those that wish to spend more time learning about the different business entities and liability, and I want to reiterate that a discussion with an attorney about your specific private practice will be the best way to determine what business entity will be the best fit for you and your practice. All right, jumping back to our business plan, the next element we're looking at is market analysis. This is where you're going to describe the industry and your competition. ASHA has some resources for this, which I will provide a link to, and you can also do an internet search of practices in your area or attend state or local meetings to network and find out who is working in your area. You also want to identify your target market, who you plan on serving in terms of age group, disorder or practice areas, and payer source, which Debbie's going to talk more about later. And you want to identify your anticipated market share, or what population of, what percentage of the identified population you're going to serve. So you might want to work with school-age children who stutter and you'll be able to serve 15 to 20% of that population with your practice. Products and services cover the types of services you plan on providing. Are you going to perform screenings, consultations with schools or other professionals, hearing conservation, expert testimony, individual training, group training, presentations? What sort of evaluations are you going to provide? What kind of treatment are you going to provide? What platform are your services going to be provided on? This is a newer question lately. Are you going to sell any products? If so, what are the products? Who is going to produce them? Is that going to be you, or are you going to buy them from someone else? How are they going to be sold? Is that going to be from you, or are you going to go through another entity? You also want to talk about how your services are competitive. What gives you an advantage over other practices? And you want to also address your pricing or fee structure in this section, which again, Debbie's going to be going over pricing and billing later in more detail. Organization and management is going to include an organizational chart for your practice if you aren't a solo practitioner, and it's going to include any permits, licenses, and insurance you need for your practice. One of the pieces of information you might include here is your federal employer identification number, which is a tax identification number and essentially functions as a social security number for your business. The marketing and sales plan is where you're going to identify to whom you can market your services, describe the demand for your services, describe how you're going to market yourself to the identified referral sources, and describe your sales strategy. At this point in the business plan, you will have found your niche, and it's reflected in various parts of your business plan. Your niche comes up in your marketing materials because this is where you're speaking directly to your preferred population. It might be helpful to picture your ideal client as you create your materials and tailor them to that specific person. Who are they? Where do they go? What do they like? This is going to help you answer some of your questions as you move through the marketing portion of your business plan. As you're identifying to whom you're marketing your services, you're thinking about where your target populations might go and what referral sources you will have. Depending on how you're billing, insurance companies can make great referral sources. As you're describing the demand for your services, you're considering how many people need or want your services, the geographic area you're serving, and payment for services. There are lots of ways to market yourself, whether you have a web page, send out emails or print flyers, have a social media preference, make personal visits, or get advertisements. As you're building your materials, you want to think about your target population. Your marketing might change based on the target referral sources, but you do want to keep that ideal client or your preferred population in mind. For example, you might send emails to insurance companies and make a personal visit to a local group or school district. The last part of this section is describing your sales strategy. Are you going to hire salespeople? How will you manage sales? One thing to keep in mind is that recurring costs can add up. That being said, if you're doing your own social media and marketing, you want to spend no more than 15 minutes per day on this task. There are lots of different resources for social media marketing if you decide to do your own. Canva is great for social media marketing. It's a free platform for image creation and provides formatting specific to different online platforms. And Fiverr.com is a platform where freelance designers can be hired for low costs, which might be a good option for logo creation. And I'll link both of those below. Along the lines of recurring costs, our next section is financial management, which will address your startup finances and expenses, as well as balance sheets. This is where you're calculating your startup costs and projecting your profits for the next 1 to 2 years. I will provide a link to ASH's resources for financial management, including some balance sheet templates. The summary summarizes the information from the other sections, and it's the final chance to showcase your practice. And the appendices are where you include any reference materials like the organizational chart, marketing materials, balance sheets, and copies of licenses and permits. ASHA has a guide for developing a business plan, as well as information about starting a private practice that I will also provide a link to in case you want more information. Next, we are going to hear from Debbie about the more day-to-day and practice of a private practice.